Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to deep dive into Chrysalis, a platform with a seriously ambitious goal, revolutionizing how global resources are managed, basically. We're using their recent Ask Me Anything session. It kind of gives us a look behind the scenes, It's like we're on the ground floor of something that could be a major shift in how the world works, really. They're talking about a lot.
Yeah.
From launching their platform to some really interesting projects in Ghana and a lot more. So,
Get ready. It's going to be interesting.
what's so fascinating about Chrysalis is that they're not just talking, they're actually doing it. They already launched their website, chrysalis.ae. Highly recommend checking it out, by the way. And they're on track to launch a minimum viable product, or MVP, of their platform in early November. So this means we're going to see their vision take shape in the real world very soon.
Okay, so we have a website and a platform coming soon. But what exactly is Chrysalis building? What's the big picture? Imagine, a world where resource-rich countries, most of them are in the developing world, actually get to keep most of the wealth generated from their natural resources. That's the core of what Chrysalis is trying to do. They want to flip the script on the traditional resource extraction model, which, let's be honest, has often benefited powerful nations and corporations at the expense of the countries with the resources.
So instead of just exporting raw materials for almost nothing, Chrysalis wants to help countries get more of the value and, importantly, make sure that value reaches local communities.
Exactly. They have 7 core projects to make this happen, and they've been super transparent about which ones are moving forward and which ones are being stopped. Now, for anyone listening, if you have NFTs or micro-licenses from those discontinued projects, you don't have to worry. They made a clear path. So you can swap into any of the 7 continuing projects. Your investments are safe.
Glad to hear that. But before we get into those specific projects, I want to understand how they plan to make this happen. What's different about their economic model?
So, to see how it's different, let's compare it to the traditional resource extraction model. Think of a country that's rich in something, like oil. Traditionally, a big multinational company comes in, extracts the oil, and ships it overseas for refining and processing. Most of the profits end up with the shareholders, often in wealthy nations.
And the country with the oil often ends up with environmental damage and only a small amount of the profits.
That's been the pattern, yeah. Sadly, in many cases. Chrysalis wants to do it differently. They want most of those value-added processes, like refining and manufacturing, to happen in the source country. This means more jobs, more tech development, and the important part, a much bigger share of the profits stay in the local economy.
That's a big vision, but how does it work in practice? Let's look at their BGLD project in Ghana. That seems to be their main example.
BGLD is a super interesting case study. They got one of Ghana's first onshore oil projects, and they're working directly with the Ghanaian government, which, has a strong vision for resource independence. This alignment is really important because it shows that Chrysalis isn't just coming in with their own agenda, They're partnering with nations that actually want to control their resources.
Ghana has always been about economic sovereignty, so this partnership seems like a perfect fit. They're not just giving away their oil, they're working with Chrysalis to develop it in a way that puts Ghana first.
And that's what makes it different. BGLD isn't just about taking the oil out. It's about building up Ghana itself. They're talking about refineries, jobs, infrastructure. It's all about long-term sustainable development, not just quick profits.
I like that you say sustainable because honestly, there's often conflict between short-term gains and long-term sustainability, especially with resources. How is Chrysalis dealing with that?
They know about that conflict, and it's clear in how they approach things. They're putting a ton of focus on working with the community and giving them power. They're making forums to discuss each project, giving research resources, and even making educational content, including videos from the actual projects.
Yeah.
So everyone stays informed.
Wait, videos from the ground. That's awesome. It makes it feel much more real than just reading reports or website updates. It sounds like they're really trying to bring the community along.
Totally. And they're going even further. They're thinking about letting the community manage budgets and giving them a direct say in how projects are developed. This is way beyond the usual top-down decisions. It really puts the power in the hands of the people.
That's kind of radical, isn't it? Giving communities that much power over resources.
It is, yeah. And it's one of the things that makes Chrysalis so interesting. They're not just changing the current system a little. They're trying to build something totally new. We'll see if they can do it. But even trying this level of community empowerment is a big deal.
We've got the vision, the model, and the example of BGLD. But I'm curious about who else they're working with. We know about their parent company, Promax United. But what about other partnerships? Who else is helping make this vision a reality?
They're working on a network of partners, including organizations in the UAE, governments, and industry specialists. This shows they're not just focused on the technical side. They're also creating a support system to help them deal with international business and resource management, which can be complicated.
Sounds like they're really thinking this through. The technical side, the community, and now the business side. But let's be real for a sec. Changing how global resources are managed, that's huge. It takes more than good intentions, right? They need serious resources and a plan for growth.
You're absolutely right. And from what I've seen, they're not afraid of that challenge. In fact, they're already looking to expand into new resource sectors, not just oil and gas. They're also working on ways to bring in institutional investment. That shows a real long-term commitment.
So they're thinking big, but they're also preparing to get the financial support to make it happen.
Exactly. And it's not just about traditional investors either. Remember those token value protection things we talked about? That's a big part of their strategy too.
Oh yeah, the token. I almost forgot about that. Crypto project and all. Can you remind us how the Chrysalis token fits into this and how they plan to make sure it keeps its value long term?
It's actually pretty smart how they've included the token in their model. It's not just something people speculate on. It's meant to be a useful token within the ecosystem. For example, they're doing buy and burn mechanisms. So they'll regularly use some of their profits to buy back tokens from the market, and then they destroy them, basically.
Okay, explain that like I'm 5. How does buying and burning tokens make them worth more?
Imagine you have a cake and you eat a few slices. What happens to the slices that are left? They become more valuable, right? Because there's less cake overall. It's the same idea with buy and burn. By reducing the total number of tokens, each one that's left becomes rarer, and therefore potentially more valuable.
Okay, I get it, but isn't that kind of risky? What if the token price crashes? They could end up using a lot of their profits, just trying to keep the price up.
You're right. It's a strategy that needs to be managed carefully. They need to balance things, supporting the token's value, while also making sure they have enough money to fund their projects. But they have other strategies to manage the token too, like managing liquidity pools, bringing in institutional investment strategically, and getting a good mix of both retail and institutional buyers.
So it's not just buy and burn, it's a whole approach to ensure sustainable growth and avoid the problems that have messed up other crypto projects.
Exactly. And here's another interesting thing about their tokenomics. They're looking at ways to use the token in real-world transactions within their projects. Like, imagine some of the revenue from the BGLD project in Ghana is used to buy Chrysalis tokens, and then those tokens are given to the local community, like a profit share, or even used to fund local projects.
Oh, that would be amazing. It would directly link the project's success to the token's value and make sure local communities benefit directly.
Yeah, that's the goal. They're still working out the details, but it shows how they're thinking outside the box about using the token to get people involved, drive value, and create a fairer system for everyone.
I'm impressed with how they're handling the token. It seems thought out and fits with their vision. But let's change gears a bit and talk about their research and content plans. You said they're going to release actual footage from their projects. What else can we expect from them in terms of keeping the community updated?
They're doing a lot in terms of research and content. They're bringing in professional researchers to track industry stuff, create educational content about resource economics, which can be complicated, but they're making it easy to understand, and give regular project updates.
So they're not just building a platform, they're building a whole knowledge base. They're becoming like a central place for information about resource democratization.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. They get it if they want this movement to grow.
Yeah.
People need to learn about the issues, the challenges, the solutions, and they're taking that seriously.
And it's not just their own team doing this, right? What about the community? Are they involved in the research and content?
That's another area where they're doing something new. They're encouraging people from the community to create content. They want to hear from people on the ground, the ones directly affected by these projects. They believe the best insights come from people with real experience.
That's a big deal. It's easy to talk about community empowerment, but they're actually making space for those voices to be heard.
For sure. And they're not stopping there. They're also looking at using micro licenses. Basically, smaller, more accessible ways to own parts of specific projects. This would let people invest directly in certain aspects of a project, giving them a more direct stake in its success.
Wait, micro licenses. You mentioned those before when we talked about discontinued projects. What are they exactly, and how do they work?
Okay, so imagine you want to support a specific refinery in the BGLD project. Instead of just buying tokens, You could buy a micro license, which gives you a small ownership in that refinery. You'd get to vote on decisions about that refinery and maybe even get a share of its profits.
So it's like a more specific way to invest based on what you care about. That's cool.
Yeah.
But this all seems so complex. How are they making sure they're following all the rules? We're talking real resources, international trade, investments. There's got to be legal stuff to figure out.
You're not wrong. The regulations are complicated, especially with something as new as Chrysalis. But they've been very careful to build their platform in a way that follows the rules from the very start. They're focused on legitimate resource democratization, and they've been clear that Chrysalis is separate from their past projects.
So they're starting fresh, basically. But how are they dealing with all those international regulations?
They're being proactive. They're working directly with governments, making transparent partnerships, and making sure what they do aligns with sustainable development goals. They're not trying to hide anything or cut corners. They're building a system that's meant to be and legal at the same time.
Makes sense. But with everything going on the platform, the token, the projects, the research, the regulations, it's a lot to follow. What are some things we can actually look for in the near future? What's next for Chrysalis?
Well, in the next few weeks, they're launching their new forum. That'll be the main place for community discussions, where people can connect, share ideas, and help shape Chrysalis's future. They'll start with discussions about the BGLD project, which will be a great chance to learn more and give your input.
So anyone listening, if you're interested in all this, go to their website, chrysalis.ae, and sign up for those forum discussions. Be a part of the conversation from the start.
And don't forget, they're also starting to release their research stuff and those community tools we talked about. So keep an eye out for those updates too.
This is all pretty exciting. It feels like we're seeing the beginning of something that could really change the world. But what about people who aren't experts in resource management or international development, like me? Why should we care about Chrysalis? What does it mean for the average person?
That's a really important question, and it goes back to what Chrysalis is all about. If they succeed, it's not just about changing how resources are managed, it's about a shift in global power. It's about a world where developing countries have more control, where wealth is shared more fairly, and communities have a real say in what happens to them.
So it's not just economics, it's about social justice, environmental sustainability, a fairer world.
Exactly. And for each person listening, this is a chance to be part of something big, something that could change things. It's a chance to invest in a future where resources are managed well, where communities do well, and where we move away from the old ways towards a more sustainable and fair future.
Powerful message. Even though we're talking about these big global systems, it shows that what we do individually can still matter.
For sure. Here's something to think about. If Chrysalis manages to create this new way of managing resources, what role could you play in it? Could you be someone who supports these ideas? Could you invest in projects that align with this? Could you help make people aware of how important resource democratization is?
Those are good questions to ask. And they show why we do these deep dives. It's not just about learning information, it's about understanding what it all means, thinking about what's possible, and figuring out how we can each contribute to a better future.
That's a great way to put it. And so I encourage everyone to go to the Chrysalis website, chrysalis.ae, look at their projects, read their stuff, join the community discussions. This is just the start of something big. And I think we'll be hearing about Chrysalis a lot more in the future.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll be back soon with another interesting topic. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and stay involved. This is The Deep Dive, signing off.
So we've covered a ton. We talked about their vision, their economic model, the BGLD project in Ghana, their whole token thing, their research, and how they handle regulations. But before we wrap up, I want to get back to the actual resources themselves. What kind of projects are we talking about specifically? Is it all oil and gas, or are they branching out?
Good question. Their main focus right now is on the BGLD project, which is all about oil. But they've said they're not just sticking to oil and gas. They're actively looking at a bunch of different resource sectors, minerals, metals, timber, even agricultural stuff.
So they're trying to make a platform that works for any resource, anywhere, right? It's about making resources accessible to everyone.
That's it. They want to give countries the power to manage their own resources and benefit from them, no matter what those resources are. They want a system that works for everything, from copper mines in Chile to cocoa farms in Ghana. It's a big goal, and it makes you wonder, how do they plan to handle all the different rules in different places? Every country has its own laws about resource extraction and development.
That's where their partnerships and transparency come in. They're not trying to force a single solution on everyone. They're working directly with governments, local communities, and industry experts to make sure each project is developed the right way, respecting local laws, traditions, and environmental concerns.
So it's a team effort. They're not just telling people what to do. They're working with everyone to find solutions that work.
Exactly. And they're using their research to stay ahead of the game when it comes to changes in regulations. They know the legal stuff is always changing, especially in new areas like renewable energy and sustainable agriculture. And they're building a team that can adapt to those changes.
This is all really impressive, but I gotta admit, it's a lot to process. For someone who's just learning about Chrysalis, what are the main takeaways? What should they be looking out for in the future?
Here's what to keep in mind. First, watch the BGLD project in Ghana closely. It's their biggest project. And if it works, it'll show that their model can actually work in the real world. Second, see how they expand into new resource areas. Can they get partners and projects in different industries? Third, pay attention to how they work with communities. Are they really empowering local people, or is it just talk?
Those are all good points. And if someone wants to get involved, what can they do? Where should they start?
The best place is their website, chrysalis.ae. Check out their projects, read what they have to say, join the discussions. This is still a new thing, and there are lots of ways to get involved. You can invest, advocate, or just tell other people about it.
So if you care about social justice, the environment, or just making the world fairer, definitely check out Chrysalis. They're trying to do something really different, and they want everyone to be a part of it.
It's an exciting time to be paying attention to this, and I think we'll be hearing a lot more about Chrysalis in the future.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Chrysalis. It's been a really informative and interesting conversation. We'll be back soon with another topic to explore. Until then, stay curious and stay engaged. This is The Deep Dive, signing off.